like to get started. I'd like to welcome all of our alumni, friends, students, faculty, staff to this last webinar of the 2023-2024 school year, Caregiver Support Workshop, What You Need to Know. So welcome. And our Broward College Alumni and Friends is a community of former students and supporters of the college. And we're more than 1 million strong in numbers. That means more than 1 million alumni have come through the doors of Broward College in all of its iterations since 1960. And our goal at Alumni and Friends is to keep you connected, to create experiences for you to stay engaged with the college, whether you're an alum or a friend. Anyone who's taken and completed at least one course at Broward College is considered to be an alumnus or an alumna. And anyone who has supported Broward College is a friend. So I welcome you all. The agenda tonight is very tight. You'll hear from our panelists, Brian and Elizabeth, in a moment. Please save your questions until the Q&A, which will be the majority of the program, so you can ask questions and converse with them. And we will also have later in the program, Robert Gallagher, who will talk a little bit about the Elder Care Services program at Broward College, for those who are more interested in the academic side of it and perhaps in pursuing that as a career choice. So this evening, we are privileged to have Preferred Legal join us. They graciously offered to offer this workshop to our alumni and friends. We have Brian Samuels, who's the Vice President and CEO, and Elizabeth Kaminsky, who's an attorney. Welcome, Brian and Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Anthony and Kristen as well. It's our pleasure to be here and deliver some very valuable information to everyone. I'm Brian Samuels. I'm one of the principals of Preferred Legal. And I would like to point out that we've been working with Broward College offering our legal plan benefit since 2002. So for over 20 years, we've been working with the college. And Elizabeth and I are both local South Floridians and obviously know Broward College for many, many years. So it's our pleasure to be here today.
Excellent. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here as well. I have been with Preferred Legal now for over 13 years. I do work with the estate planning field, and I'm sure I've spoken to some of you if you've reached out to Preferred Legal to get your wills and your healthcare documents done. I'm usually your point of contact, so I'm more than happy to present to you a little bit about this subject and then have you reach out to me should you need any of these services done for you and your family.
Terrific. I will hand the virtual mic over to Brian and Elizabeth.
Perfect. So when should we do these documents? And I get asked this a lot. And people always wonder when and how, and this is the best place to do it. And now is the time to get it done. When you are of sound mind, when you want to make your decisions, when you want to make sure that you have everything in writing before you're incapacitated and are unable to make those decisions for yourself. So now is the time to get this done. And I'm going to walk you through a few documents that you're going to need in order to begin this process. And please go to the next slide. All of these documents are modifiable during your lifetime. And the first one I want to discuss with you is the durable power of attorney. The purpose of this document is for you to elect who you want to make as your primary and your alternate decision maker. This person that you elect allows you, give them the authority to act on your behalf in a broad range of capacity. That could be legal, financial, business matters, speaking to a mortgage company, a credit card company, any financial matter where you want them to make a decision for you. This is this type of document that you're able to go ahead and create while you are of sound mind to give them that ability. Next. The next document is also a document that allows you to elect a primary and an alternate person. This is for your health care decision maker. This gives the person the ability to speak to doctors, access your medical care, and make decisions for you when you cannot do so upon your incapacitation. And this can come into effect in many types of scenarios. The most common one is the cognitive impairment, whether it's Alzheimer's, the beginning of dementia, any type of mental illness, any intellectual disabilities. Sometimes it's even when you're unconscious in a situation where you go in for a surgery and they need to go and do another procedure. You are under the anesthesia and you cannot make the decision. Who you would want to make that decision for you. And this document allows you to name those individuals. Again, always modifiable, but it allows you, while you are of sound mind, to give the authority to those individuals for your behalf. Next. The last document I want to mention that is important to have during your lifetime is the living will and one of the advance directives. The purpose of this document is where you officially can state your wishes to not be kept alive by artificial means. It's very commonly known as pull the plug document. If you're in a vegetative state or in a very similar condition, hooked up to the machines, again, this document allows you to elect both a primary and a secondary person to discuss with the doctors that you do not want to be kept in this vegetative state and allow them to make this decision to end your life. Next. The other document is the do not resuscitate, is the DNR. That is something that we usually recommend to do only at an extremely advanced age. And the reason is because this document is where you let medical professionals know that you do not want to be resuscitated. And that means simple measures like CPR. And this is very different than the living will. As previously mentioned, the living will is when you're already in the vegetative state. And this one is when you go into cardiac arrest or stop breathing. Next. So other concerns. I mentioned briefly before that these documents can be created only when you are of sound mind. So this is super important because when the person that you're trying to make these decisions and giving the authority to somebody else to act on your behalf, and you cannot do so, your loved ones have to go through the courts to gain control over those financial and medical decisions. That formal process is known as guardianship. This is an area of last resort as it becomes something that's expensive. It also takes a lot of time because you have to deal with attorneys and the courts, and usually they're backed up. So that's why I mentioned it's best to do these documents now when you are able to make these decisions and your loved ones are able to make these decisions of who they want for these specific roles in order to avoid this more cumbersome process known as guardianship. Next. So concerns, what happens when you're not able to care for your loved ones? What should you do? What are the options? What are your choices for care? You're able to use those documents that I just mentioned in order to make these decisions for your loved ones. There's a few choices I want to run through with you. The first one is obviously to hire someone in your home. You can do it privately or via a nursing home agency. An assisted living facility, commonly known as an ALF. This and the skilled nursing facility. The main difference between the assisted living facility and the skilled nursing facility is the payment. In an assisted living facility, it is a two-pronged fee. There's a medical side and a hotel side, whereas the skilled nursing facility is a straight medical. And on the next slide, you'll see where that plays a difference in terms of the cost and also paying for these types of care. So to pay for them, many times people have long-term care insurance. This is extremely costly. It's based upon your age of when you purchased it on the amount that your premium is for this long-term care. So the older you are, the more pricey that policy premium will be. But that is an option. The next thing is Medicaid. This is something you need to apply for and qualify for. You cannot really have any assets when you apply for Medicaid. And as of 2024, those assets need to be $2,000 or less in order to qualify for Medicaid. And this Medicaid does pay for the medical portion of the care in the facility. So that's where you can see the difference between the skilled nursing and the ALF and why there would be a price difference in those two types of care for your loved ones. Next. So what type of estate planning would you need after you pass? How can you protect your loved ones? How can you be prepared for that time? I spoke about things that you need for before, but this is for after. And I'm going to go through a few things that you would need in order to prepare for that time. But the first thing I want to mention that's super important is beneficiary designations. That's not on the slide, but I wanted to take a few minutes to kind of run through that. And the best way to do that is just go through all of your accounts, the checking, the savings, the 401ks, the life insurances, any accounts that you may have, and make sure that you do have beneficiary designations on them. You can elect both a primary and a contingent beneficiary for those accounts. That is important because that is going to avoid probate. It is going to make it easier for your loved ones in order for them to receive those assets that you have in those specific accounts. Those are also always modifiable. So any life change that you have, you definitely want to make sure that you modify those beneficiaries. I'm sure most of you have heard this story, but I'm going to tell it because it's one of my favorite. I've heard this story where there was a gentleman who was married. He had a policy. He put his wife on that policy. He divorced. He got remarried, unfortunately passed, and he never updated that beneficiary. So his ex-wife was the one that got the policy benefits. So I'm sure she was happy, but the new wife was not. So definitely make sure that you update those beneficiaries. The last will and testaments. This is a document that's created during your lifetime that allows you to express your wishes and direct how you want those assets to go. It provides you the opportunity to list who you would want to take on guardianship for your minor children, your wishes for memorial, cremation, funeral wishes. Even your pets, it's important to list them in the will for how you wish them to be cared for after your passing. Revocable trust is a document created also during your lifetime. It's very similar to a last will and testament, and whose main purpose is to avoid probate. It allows you to put everything under one umbrella and funnel it through that revocable living trust. Next. The last document I want to mention is state specific here to Florida. It is a document that's created again during your lifetime and allows you to avoid probate on your property. This is specific for property located in Florida, and it allows you to remain the complete owner and control of the property during your lifetime. But you can elect who you would want to inherit that property through listing them on that ladybird deed. Next. So I know I went through it quickly. I went through a lot of information. I went through documentation of what you would need during your lifetime to help loved ones care for you. I also discussed some documentation that you would need for after you're gone in order to put out your wishes in writing and protect your loved ones. And now we're going to open it up to questions. If you do have questions, you can type them in the chat. We'll get to them in the order that they are received. And hopefully this was helpful for you in terms of creating and getting your documents in place. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. We have one from Jonathan. Does signing the DNR also allow for the DNI or do not intubate?
Let's be very clear. The DNR versus the living will are two completely separate animals, but people do confuse them a lot. So again, DNR, meaning do not resuscitate, means they won't attempt to bring you back if your heart stops. No CPR, no paddles, no nothing. And as we know, you could be gone for minutes and minutes and they can bring you back with some of these amazing technologies they have. So a DNR is really for end of life. Like once you hit 90, you can do a DNR. That's kind of the way I like to say it. But for a living will, that's basically your wishes in writing that you don't want these hookups to the machines. And intubation can be sort of one of those items. But the best part of the living will, as Liz mentioned, is that you do name a decision maker. So it's not like just because you sign a living will, the doctors are going to say, let's go home for the weekend. No, they're still going to go to your loved one and say, what should we do? Do you want us to pull the plug? Do you want us to intubate? Do you want us to do this, do that? So it's important to have the document in place, but also even more important to let your loved ones know, let your decision maker know as specific as you want to get with the decision maker. So they're aware of what your wishes are, because they'll be the one to carry that out. And that's how all that stuff works.
What types of wishes should people make sure to cover in their will, Brian?
Again, so we have living will, which is the pull the plug doc, but then we have a regular will, which is the last will and testament, and that's the estate planning document. So in your regular will, last will and testament, you can put any wishes that you want. You can literally do whatever the heck you want in your will, you know, in terms of assets, in terms of personal items, etc. The living will, the pull the plug document, is a fairly standard form. So you probably would want to read the form, make sure you agree with all the language and stuff. And then again, you can add more specifics to your decision maker so they know sort of how to handle it. One of the other things that could be added to a living will is if you have the wish to be an organ donor, then we add an anatomical gift provision into the document. But otherwise, it's a fairly standard form that you would want to review and make sure you agree with all the provisions.
Okay. Joanne, you have a question on the life insurance policy after divorce?
Yes, hi. Okay, so if there's a life insurance policy, the people got divorced. The person who had the life insurance policy passed away. In the state of Florida, is the ex-wife or husband allowed to collect that money?
Again, it would only be if they're named as the beneficiary to the policy, which sometimes pursuant to a divorce, you know, they require, you know, one spouse to hold life insurance in favor of the other. So if it's in accordance with the divorce decree, then yes. But otherwise, typically, no, absolutely not.
Okay, so the state of Florida would not allow the ex-husband or wife to collect that money.
Not a state thing. In other words, like, let's say there's no beneficiary, so it goes through the deceased's estate. An ex has no rights in the estate.
Okay, if there is a beneficiary, that's the only person that would be able to collect.
Correct. A beneficiary takes precedence, or I should say a beneficiary designation on an asset takes precedence over anything else. So that's how that asset will go.
Even if that beneficiary is the ex.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, we have
Sort
a
of
question.
tack on to that
Sorry.
real quick,
Yeah.
Anthony.
Mhm.
Anyone can change and update their beneficiary designation at any time. You could literally do it every day if you wanted. So in her scenario, it would be up to the ex to update their beneficiary, of course.
Brian, so do the documents discussed need to be filed anywhere? Example, with the hospital, with the attorney's office? What?
Great question. And it's a little weird because here in Florida, where, you know, people come to retire and pass on, you would think that there would be a will registry, a state registry, but there's nothing. So the most important thing is that I always recommend, if you do these documents, that you keep your originals. Don't let the attorney keep the originals. You keep the originals. The attorney should keep a copy, which does suffice if for some reason the originals are lost or destroyed for some reason. Other than that, if you want to give a copy of like the healthcare surrogate to your primary doctor and living will, or to the hospital you're going to, no problem. If you want to give a copy of the power of attorney to your bank so they have it on file, no problem. But that's between you and the third parties. There is no official registry of any kind in Florida. So the only thing that you must follow through on after you sign is a new deed. So if you're doing that ladybird deed technique that Liz mentioned, once you sign a deed, the deed must be recorded in the property office for that county to make that official. Everything else is official the moment you've signed it, witnessed, notarized it.
Let's see. So what are the procedures to obtain a ladybird deed? What's the estimated cost?
Yep. So that's just engaging an attorney to draft a new deed for you. So that's all it is right on the face of a new deed, we set it up with the ladybird language. So it's a very simple process. You know, in terms of cost, under the legal plan, we prepare the ladybird deeds for $100 of cost total charge. I'd imagine on the street, somewhere in the $300 to $400 range, maybe.
Does a living will designation, i.e. a primary contingent person, ever overlap with the healthcare surrogate?
Question in this sense, they used to be separate documents, but the statutes kind of updated fairly recently. So our healthcare surrogate and living will is now a combined one document where you have the same decision makers appointed. If for some reason you wanted to separate them, we could, but traditionally now they're one lumped in document with the same decision makers.
Does the last will and testament override any beneficiary orders on policies, bank accounts, etc.?
Absolutely not. 100% no. The beneficiary designation takes precedence over anything else. So if your will says everything to this person, but you've designated your accounts to this other person is getting those assets. So just make sure, you know, when you're sort of reviewing your total picture, that everything lines up together.
What's the difference and the pros and cons of between setting up a trust versus listing beneficiaries on accounts?
Good question. So not too much difference in terms of pros and cons, in the sense that these are sort of two different ways that we use to avoid probate. So if you're saying, I want to avoid probate, and you own real estate, then you're either doing a living trust where you put everything into the trust, or you're doing a ladybird deed on the property and beneficiarying all of your accounts. And then you're avoiding probate that way. So it's kind of two different means to the same end. I prefer, and Liz knows this, we prefer the ladybird deed technique and the beneficiarying technique versus a trust. Even though I'm sure everyone in this Zoom has heard of a living trust, thinks they might need a living trust, their friends have told them they should have a trust. This whole thing about living trust, like, it became such a buzzword for the past many years. But here's the issue, and I've seen this happen repeatedly, where members of the plan will come to us to review their planning, and we see that they have existing trusts that attorneys did for them way back when. And I ask them, oh, is your property in the name of your trust? Is your account in the name of your trust? And the answer is always no. What do you mean? No, it's not. So the problem I see is attorneys love to do trusts for people, but they don't properly inform them that your trust must be fully funded. And what do we mean by that? It means every asset must be retitled into the name of your trust. So it can't be in Karen's name. It has to be in the Karen trust. So what happens is people set up trusts, they go on in life, they acquire new property, they open a new account. And unless you're very disciplined to remember that you must have title in your trust, and it's human nature, we don't expect you to remember this. So inevitably, one account, something gets left out of the trust. And then when you pass away, that asset has to be probated, and you've lost the whole advantage of why you did it in the first place.
Interesting.
So we like the other technique. Also, when the time comes, even if you have properly funded your trust, so you are avoiding probate, guess what? There still has to be an administration of your trust. Several legal steps. You have to get a tax ID number. You have to file a tax return. You have to do a new deed out of the trust to remove the property. Nothing akin to a probate, but still several legal steps. Whereas the ladybird deed and the beneficiarying, like that, snap your fingers and you get it. So another reason why we like that technique, now again, on the street, attorneys love to talk trusts. Probably a lot of your friends and colleagues have trusts. And I know why attorneys on the street are putting people into trusts, young couples into trusts, because they could charge 3 times the fees versus just doing a regular estate plan. But again, trust planning is more appropriate at the latter stage of life, because then you kind of have your assets you're going to flip them into your trust, and then you're done with it. Doing trusts at a young age, unless you're going to be very disciplined for the rest of your life, I don't believe in it. We prefer the other techniques for all those reasons.
Well, aligned with that, someone is asking then, is there an income bracket or range when a trust is just too costly?
Another good question. So whether to do a trust, whether to avoid probate is not really a function of your net worth. This is not just for rich people. This is for anybody to save your loved ones the time and money and effort of a probate. Now, what do I mean by that? Here in Florida, it's not a nightmare, but we're talking about $5 grand-ish kind of range. We're talking about months, not weeks, it takes to do probate, even up to a year. And then, of course, the effort to find a lawyer, go to court, and do all those steps versus snap your fingers. So it's a huge difference. But yeah, it's not really a function of net worth. Now, let me give you another example. So if we do a trust package for a member under the legal plan, which is going to be the trust, the will, the power of attorney, the healthcare, the deed to put it into trust, everything, the whole kit and caboodle, as we say, we do that for $300 total charge under the legal plan. If you go out on the street, you're going to find $2,000 to $2,500 for that same service. So that just to give you an idea of the fees associated with it.
Can you undo a ladybird deed?
Yes, every single thing that we are talking about in this session is updatable, undoable, redoable, whatever the heck you want at any time. So nothing you're doing is locking in forever. You can always change it at any time.
Back to trusts, what are some assets that should not be placed in a trust?
So again, remember, every single asset must be in the name of your trust or have a beneficiary to it. But then a lot of times what you'll do is you'll beneficiary something and just beneficiary it to your trust. So ultimately, everything goes through the trust and goes through the terms of the trust, which is exactly what we want. And those assets that traditionally have beneficiary to them would be like retirement, life insurance, IRA, and you would just beneficiary those to your trust. But if we're talking about a bank account or a brokerage account, etc., you'll just retitle that into the name of your trust. So the account itself will be in the trust name.
Okay. What is the difference between a durable power of attorney versus a power of attorney?
Word, of course, means that the power of attorney will continue even if the person is incapacitated. And from our standpoint in this conversation, that's all we're talking about. So we always want it to be durable. A regular power of attorney might be where, let's say you're closing on a real estate transaction, but you got to leave the country. You have a trip. So you want to assign your loved one to sign for you at the closing. That could be what we call a limited power of attorney, just specific to that task. So maybe that's a difference here between the two.
What considerations are there for leaving money to a nonprofit as part of your estate plans?
Absolutely. So again, you can do whatever the heck you want in your estate plan. If you want to leave everything to charity, you want to leave it all into a trust for your dog or cat, you want to leave it to the guy down the street, you can do whatever you want. And look, if you don't have children, or for any reason you have charitable intent, that's amazing. And of course, we would build all those provisions into your plan.
Brian, do the benefits of the legal plan extend to family members such as spouse, children, parents?
Yes, the plan is for your entire household, and of course covers spouse, domestic partner, dependents, anyone that lives with you. But let me take it further. A lot of times members contact us because they need to get their parents' affairs in order. So we always help to help with parents' affairs in the same vein, with reduced cost and all of this available, whatever's most appropriate for your loved ones. So yes, we're here to help in any way in that regard.
And someone is asking if they're going to have a link to the pricing that was discussed. We will be following up with a flyer and a link to this this webinar too. So that information will be made available to people.
And please, anyone that has any questions that come to mind after the fact, let me give everyone our phone numbers, and don't hesitate to call if you're looking for clarification or anything at all. You can give us a call at Preferred Legal. So the local number is 954-246-8438. 954-246-8438. And toll free, you can always reach us at 888-577-3476. And that toll-free number is on our flyer that's going to be disseminated.
And Brian, as we have a number of Broward College faculty and staff present, can you tell them a little bit about how that works for them?
Absolutely. So again, the legal plan benefit, we've been with the college for 20 plus years, and the legal plan is not just for this stuff, but it's for this stuff and a lot more. It's basically like having us on retainer for you and your family. If you have a question, if you have a problem, if you need advice, anything at all you want to speak to an attorney about, we're just a phone call away at those numbers I provided. You can reach us 24/7. And we're just available here to talk to you about anything, all the advice we give, all the questions, know your legal rights in any situation is all unlimited and included in the program. If you have a document or a contract before you sign something, let us review it for you. Excellent way to protect yourself. Make sure you don't get into a bad deal. Also unlimited and included in the program. If you have a dispute of any kind, someone taking advantage of you, things that we all deal with here in our day-to-day lives, especially in South Florida, the worst for everything, of course. This would be like the contractor you hired that didn't do the job right, or the guy you loaned money to and you never heard back from, the mechanic messed up your car, the cleaners damaged your clothing. We don't care how trivial. We will write an attorney demand letter, make phone calls directly to that third party, and I'm sure everyone here knows what happens when someone gets a letter from your attorney. It is a call to action. We light a fire under them. A lot of times it can resolve the situation right then and there. Very powerful resource is the attorney letters, unlimited and included in the program. We also help you under the legal plan with credit repair. Anything on your credit, we will help you clean that up. We're the only legal plan that does it, and we're very good at it. Also unlimited and included in the program. Identity theft services, which are a big problem and have become so over the last decade. Every 3 seconds, they say now, someone's identity is compromised. And of course, South Florida is the worst. So we've got you covered there with steps you can take to protect yourself, to be vigilant. And then if you are victimized in any way, of course, to help you jump through all the restorative steps you have to do, all part of the plan. All of the estate planning, which we covered here today, all part of the plan. And the last example with the legal plan is if you do have a situation or a problem that escalates on you to where you're going to be dragged into court on something. Doesn't happen that often, but if you are going to be dragged into court, we give you the option to work with one of our panel attorneys. That's a specialist in the area of law you need help in. You get a free consultation, so you get to meet the attorney, go over the situation. And then you can choose to retain that attorney for formal representation. If you do, you're getting a discount with the attorney because you're with our plan. And on average, that discount is half off of the attorney's fee, so it is significant. So we got you covered from A to Z on any legal problem. And in terms of what we cover, it's anything and everything you can think of, except the only thing we don't cover is anything involving the college. No job stuff. That's a conflict. So this is a personal plan for all your personal stuff. So we're talking traffic tickets, real estate, family law, credit stuff, car accident, personal injury, bankruptcy, immigration, probate, criminal stuff, landlord tenant, very hot and heavy, you name it. I'm going to tell everyone the number one most popular usage of the legal plan. And I'll say it like this. During the pandemic, everybody was stuck at home with their spouse for 2 years. So we have been getting divorce calls through the roof. And I kind of make light of it because if we don't, we'll cry about it because it's that serious. A lot of divorce, as well as, hey, I'm already divorced, but my ex is not fill in the blank, not paying child support, not returning my child promptly, not honoring the divorce decree. So many post-divorce issues. That is the number one usage of the plan. And we can help you in so many ways in that regard. But we cover that and so much more. The legal plan costs you $9.95 per month. So it's $4 and change per pay period. And again, covers everybody in the household. So a lot of value to our legal plan that we hope you'll see.
And very comprehensive. And there, Brian, I don't know if you can see, but you've got a couple of testimonials from our BC staff on how useful the service has been to them in two different ways.
Appreciate that always. And we wouldn't have made it 20 years without good service. In all seriousness, it is what we pride ourselves on is service. It's all we care about. So you get a real nice touch, a personal touch when you use us, kind of unlike dealing with attorneys. So I think people would like that.
Wanda, how do I enroll? I would reach out to Talent and Culture, your rep there, and to get the ball rolling.
Yep, everything through the benefits folks in HR and they'll get it straight. Yes.
So, Brian and Elizabeth, there's one last question I think is kind of interesting because it's around this topic and it's from the perspective of somebody who is a caregiver and perhaps they're in a situation where there are other people vying for attention to be the caregiver of someone. So what kind of legal guidance does a caregiver need, or do you suggest for them to protect themselves?
Such a great question. And I wish I had a very direct answer, but unfortunately, this end of life stuff, when our loved ones get older and sick, etc., it seems to create a scenario where, well, let me say it this way. When when the loved ones see that sort of the end might be near, and then they start thinking that the assets are going to come into play, that money's going to be around. Whenever people think there's money around, it makes people act weird. It's the best way I can put it. In 25 years of doing this, I've heard every story imaginable. But that's always the bottom line is it just makes people act weird. And thus, now look, if you're the person named in the documents, then you have the power. You're the person. So I don't really care if other people are coming to you, trying to influence you or trying to do this and that. You have the power and you're acting in the best interests of the person that you're caring for. And that's your guiding light. Now, look, people are capable of doing anything. And as I said, people get weird with this stuff. So if somebody's up to no good, if somebody's acting in a way they shouldn't, then you're going to deal with that head on at the time. And it's just going to depend on what the nature of it is, what's happened, you know, etc. But it's a good thought to sort of be vigilant of it, because again, at this end of life stuff, it gets a little gray in some places, and we don't like that. We like when the law is black and white. And unfortunately here, it's just not. So it's really up to our legislature to do something about it. And maybe someday, if and when I retire, I'll take myself up to Tallahassee and tell them about all these things I've seen over the years. But that's where it's going to have to happen to actually have real change. Otherwise, you just act accordingly. That's all.
Great. Thank you for addressing that. At this point, I'd like to invite Robert Gallagher, who is a faculty here at Broward College and leads the elder care program, to talk a bit about elder care service at Broward College. Robert, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. I
Great.
appreciate that.
Welcome.
Well, I don't know how I'm going to follow up with all that legal stuff. That was some good information here. Can you see me?
No, let's get your
Okay.
camera turned on.
Yeah. Hold on. There we go. Give me 1 second here. There we go. Sorry about that. So thank you for all that legal information stuff. I actually have just a quick testimony before I do a 5-minute spiel, is that I do have preferred legal myself, and I've used it for my living will, and it was amazing, and it was quick, and it gave me sound peace of mind. So I do definitely recommend it. And like I said, it's like, I don't know, it was like $9 a month or something like that out of your pay. It's pretty cheap. I just wanted to introduce myself to those of you on the call, and then just kind of tell you a little bit about a program I run here at BC. So again, my name is Dr. Robert Gallagher. I am technically, my title is a professor of sociology and human services at Broward College. I also run the human services program at Broward College. We have 3 programs we have within our human services program. One deals with family violence, which is like domestic violence, child abuse. The other one deals with substance abuse. But one of the ones we deal with, and that's why I was asked to talk today, is elderly care. So we have a couple programs. Human services, human services, I guess the most equivalent, Adora, would be kind of like social work, right? Program. It's basically a social work, right? So in our program, working with elderly students, we have 2 major things we do. Well, 3 actually. First off, students can get a 2-year degree in elderly care. And then we also set them up with an internship or practicum. So the students actually get to work with seniors and learn how seniors work. Like one of those organizations we work with right now, just for example, is they learn how to do case management, and they work with seniors that are in financial need. And they help them pay like their light bill and make sure they get them set up with services that they may need, that they're in need of, either financially, emotionally, socially, right? Then the other major area that our students work with elderly care on is we have this grant with United for Seniors. And in the grant for United for Seniors, what they end up doing is it's actually a paid internship where students work with elderly people, and it's kind of a one-on-one thing where they go out, they talk with them, meet with them, socialize with them. And one of the goals of the grant is to reduce loneliness, suicidal tendencies among seniors. So the students actually get paid and go out there and work about 15 hours a week with seniors, and it creates that connection, that community, that sense of youth and older citizens to kind of come together, bridge gaps, and about some of the things that they have in common, right? And so we want to reduce, obviously we want to reduce loneliness and any other mental health issue it has. And when you got a BC student coming out there and talking to and spending 15 hours a week with this senior, sometimes it's their only support system, right? And so we found so far in doing this grant that, and we hire up to 20 BC, they have to be BC students, so which is the great thing, is that we have 20 students right now in this program that work with seniors. And as they graduate, they can stay there for a little bit longer, but ideally the program is geared toward exclusively BC students with this grant. So, and the BC students can be anywhere from traditional students, 18 to 22-year-olds, to more non-traditional students who come back. So there's no age limit on the student. They just have to be a BC student. And what we found so far is that rates of loneliness, rates of suicidal ideation has gone down significantly with these students going out there and creating a bond, a friendship, a network with these seniors. And so, and it really gives human services students the practical application experience of health, elder care in the field. So that's a little bit about what we do. I didn't want to take more than 5 minutes because I know you have a packed agenda. So I didn't know if anybody had any questions, comments, or concerns. I did address Adora. Yeah, it's the human services program, like the social work program. Tamara says, please connect with my counterpart in talent and culture, APV, Lisa, regarding what you're talking about. Okay, yeah, I can do that. I can talk to Lisa about that. But yeah, we do that, and it's an amazing program. And not only that, like I said, we work with the seniors in providing practicum internships for students as well, non-paid internships where they get to work with seniors who are having some financial difficulties. And it really is a great way to have students learn about case management, how to learn, working with clients who have financial issues and things like that. And really, I was a social worker for like 15 years. So it's kind of like right up in that field for me as well. So anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns?
There's one about, is there a link? And we can share the link, Robert. I think we have a QR code there, but.
Yeah, exactly. Share the link to our Broward College Human Services program. We're under the pathway of social behavioral science and human services. And this human services program, ironically, was started by me only 4 years ago, right? So we literally just started this program 4 years ago. And like I said, we do have 3 specialties, but one of them is elderly care. And we've seen it just grow, and grow. So we're really excited to continue to grow through it. And our goal eventually is get it to where students can get a bachelor's degree in this program. So that's our goal as we continue to grow. So thank you for your time. I'll just hold on and see if there's any more questions.
There's one from 98 alum, and who says, I assume the BC Elder Care program works outside original Medicare and Medicare Advantage plans?
Correct. So the paid one is through a grant where students get paid to go out and work with seniors. The other one is a non-paid practicum. So there is no Medicare or Medicaid that the students particularly deal with. However, a lot where the students do one of the internships working with helping seniors get their light bill paid and things like that is through another grant, right? Now they have to be eligible. So what students will do is they'll do the case management part of it, like the eligibility. So if they're Medicaid eligible, they will go through that and make sure through means testing that they apply and they don't have assets and money, and you know how that works, right? So they do that aspect of the case management. But seniors right now, or our students right now, don't work directly with Medicare or directly with Medicaid. They're working with the agencies who kind of like do that work.
Got it.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, thank you. Gosh, great questions all over tonight.
Absolutely.
The QR code, okay, yeah, we will link that also in the follow-up email.
And then please please give, let me put in the chat, please give, here, I'm gonna give you my information here. So if anybody has any questions, I'll give you my cell number and my email at work. And then if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me as well. And there's my phone number, that's my cell, and then also my work email. Reach out to me if you have any questions.
Terrific, and we'll include that in the wrap-up email.
Perfect.
Brian and Elizabeth, you have any parting words tonight?
Was a pleasure to participate and transmit this information and see so many willing participants. It's such a nice service, and kudos to you, Anthony, for organizing and putting it together. This is an amazing service for the alumni and the staff. So just happy to participate.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us. It was our
And
pleasure.
I certainly want to acknowledge my partner, Kristen Crawford, who helped organize much of this also. This is our last event of the year, but I want everyone just to pay attention for emails coming out about the program that we have for the fall. I will tell you that if there are any pickleball players, our College Foundation is organizing a tournament in September 6th, so there'll be more information about that coming out. That's going to be a first of for the foundation, so please don't opt out of emails so that you get all this wonderful information, and also because so that you can benefit from these kinds of experiences, right? We're using people in our own community who are experts and who are gracious enough to come back to BC and share their expertise with us. So thank you, Robert, Brian, Elizabeth. There will be an email coming out summarizing all of this, plus with a link to the webinar. And also it will be in our newsletter going out to our 80,000 plus alumni and friends. So thank you, alumni friends. Brian and Elizabeth, you are certainly friends and you have been for a while. Appreciate your contribution, your participation tonight.
Again, Anthony and Kristen too. You guys have a great night.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.